Trump did his big one in Venezuela, the illegal extraction edition. So apparently we woke up in 2026 and decided we were still doing Empire. No remix, no update, same old conquistador software, just running on Wi-Fi now. Because if you missed it, the United States of America, under Donald J. Trump, sent forces into Venezuela, grabbed the sitting president, Nicolas Maduro, put him on a plane, flew him to New York, and said, surprise, court date. And then Trump went on TV and basically said, yeah, we're going to run the country for a little bit. And also, we're taking the oil. Now, I want you to really sit with that. Not emotionally, legally, because vibes don't matter in international law. Receipts do. Let's start slow. According to international law, and when I say international law, I'm talking about the UN Charter, the thing countries agreed to after World War II, so we stopped doing unhinged stuff like this. You cannot use military force against another sovereign nation unless one of two things is true. Either the UN Security Council authorizes it, or you are acting in self-defense because that country attacked you or was about to attack you. That's not my opinion. That's Article 2, Section 4 of the UN Charter. That's the rule book. Now let me ask a very simple question. Did Venezuela attack the United States? No. Were Venezuelan tanks rolling through Texas? No. Was Maduro about to launch an imminent strike on Miami? Also no. So self-defense is out. And there was no UN Security Council authorization either, which means, according to international law experts across the globe, this looks like an illegal use of force. Period. Not spicy, not debatable, illegal. And before somebody says, well, Maduro was a dictator, okay. Even if you believe that, and many people do, international law does not say if you don't like another country's leader, you can kidnap them with the military. That's not a clause. That's not a footnote. That's not an asterisk. Now let's bring it home. According to the United States Constitution, the document conservatives claim to love, Congress declares war, not the president, Congress. And yes, presidents have pushed that line for decades, but that's why the War Powers Resolution exists. It literally says if the president introduces U.S. forces into hostilities without congressional authorization, Congress has the right to step in and shut it down. And guess what happened almost immediately after this Venezuela operation? Members of Congress started filing War Powers resolutions saying, we did not authorize this. That alone tells you this is legally shaky. Because if it was clean, nobody would be scrambling to stop it. Now here's where it gets even messier. Extradition law. Countries extradite people through treaties, courts, paperwork, and due process. You don't extradite a sitting head of state by flying special forces into a capital city. If the U.S. believed Maduro committed crimes, the legal path would have been an international arrest warrant, diplomatic pressure, and negotiations, not a military snatch and grab. That matters because bypassing extradition procedures violates both international law norms and basic due process principles that the U.S. claims to champion. And let's talk about head of state immunity, because this is another legal landmine. Under customary international law, sitting heads of state are generally immune from foreign criminal jurisdiction while in office. That immunity doesn't mean they're innocent forever. It means you don't arrest them like a street-level suspect while they still represent a sovereign government. That's why international courts exist. That's why tribunals exist. Ignoring that principle doesn't make the law disappear. It just makes the arrest look political, not judicial. Now let's add another layer. The International Criminal Court exists specifically so powerful countries don't unilaterally decide who gets arrested and how. The U.S. didn't use it, didn't defer to it, didn't even pretend to respect it. Instead, it said, we'll be the police, the judge, and the jailer. And historically, when one country appoints itself global law enforcement without consent, that's called aggression, not justice. And now let's talk occupation law, because Trump didn't stop at the arrest. He said the U.S. would run Venezuela for a while. Under international law, occupation triggers legal duties, protecting civilians, maintaining local law, and, this part is key, not exploiting resources for your own benefit. According to the Geneva Conventions and the Hague Regulations, pillage is prohibited. Taking oil, redirecting profits, or handing control to U.S. corporations while under military control is explicitly illegal. That's not foreign policy. That's textbook extraction. Now add domestic criminal law abuse to the pile. Charging a foreign leader in U.S. courts for actions taken while governing another country stretches jurisdiction to its breaking point. Universal jurisdiction exists for things like genocide and crimes against humanity, not for we don't like how you ran your country. And also we want your oil. When criminal law becomes a tool of regime change, courts stop looking neutral and start looking weaponized. And let's not ignore the precedent problem, because this is the quiet danger. If this is okay, then any powerful country can now justify invading a weaker one, arresting its leadership, and claiming legality after the fact. China sees that. Russia sees that. Every regional power sees that. And once that line is crossed, international law stops being law and becomes a suggestion box. Now let's talk money, because someone always has to pay for this nonsense. According to long-term U.S. budget data, we are already running massive deficits, drowning in interest payments, and struggling to fund basic domestic priorities. Occupying, stabilizing, or running another country costs trillions. We know this. We lived through Iraq. We lived through Afghanistan. We watched decades of money evaporate while infrastructure at home crumbles. So when Trump says we're going to run Venezuela for a while, I just want to know, with what money, with what plan, with what legal authority? Because vibes are not a strategy. And here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. If this were any other country doing this, if China rolled into a neighbor, grabbed their leader and said, we're taking your lithium, the US would call it aggression. We'd call it illegal. We'd call it a threat to world order. The only difference here is the passport of the people holding the guns. That's not leadership. That's hypocrisy with a press conference. So no, this is not normal. No, this is not clearly legal. And no, this is not some clever chess move. According to international law, it's likely unlawful. According to the Constitution, it's highly questionable. According to basic history, it's the same old empire behavior that always comes back to bite. And the wildest part is 2026. We have satellites, we have treaties, we have global institutions, and we're still acting like the solution to everything is send the troops and take the stuff. That's not strength. That's insecurity in a suit. This is Marcus Ferrell live. If you want more breakdowns like this, where we cut through the propaganda, read the fine print, and say the quiet part out loud, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And remember, history doesn't repeat because it has to. It repeats because people refuse to learn. See you next time.